clammy in my trembling hands. I frantically flipped through the pages, searching for a spell, any spell that could help, a spell to find a person, a spell to fight back against the darkness. I found a page with a drawing of a crying eye. The chapter was titled, "A Glimpse Beyond the Veil." It was a dangerous ritual, one that promised to show you what the spirits see. It required a personal item from the one you sought and a drop of your own blood. It warned that looking into the spirit world could drive a person mad. I didn't care about the risk. I had to find Sarah. I crept into her house through the back door, which her desperate parents had left unlocked. Her room was just as she had left it, a teddy bear on the bed, a poster of her favorite band on the wall. My eyes landed on a small silver locket on her nightstand. I grabbed it and ran back to my house, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I locked my bedroom door, drew the curtains, and prepared the ritual. The air in the room grew heavy and thick, making it hard to breathe. The whispers from the hallway grew louder, more insistent. I followed the instructions perfectly. I drew the circle on the floor with chalk. I placed the locket in the center. Then with a shaking hand, I pricked my finger with a pin and let a single drop of red blood fall onto the locket. As soon as the blood touched the silver, the room plunged into darkness. The candle flame was snuffed out as if by an invisible hand. The whispers turned into screams, and in the center of the circle, the silver locket began to glow with a sickly green light. I leaned forward, peering into the glow, and the world dissolved into a nightmare of swirling fog and screaming faces. Through the ghastly green light of the locket, I saw her. Sarah, she was in the old abandoned church at the edge of the graveyard. She wasn't tied up or hurt, not in the way I expected. She was just standing there, in the center of the ruined chapel. And she wasn't alone. The shadows were with her. Dozens of them. They writhed and coiled around her, not touching her, but trapping her in a swirling vortex of darkness. They were feeding on her fear. I could feel it. A cold, terrified energy that flowed from her and made the shadows stronger, more solid. I gasped and pulled back, the vision fading. The locket's glow died and my room returned to normal. Well, a new kind of normal. The air was still freezing and the whispers were still there, but now they sounded mocking. I knew where Sarah was, but what could I do? I was just one kid. How could I fight an army of living shadows? I turned to the only thing I had, the book. I opened it again, my hands no longer shaking. The fear was being replaced by a cold, hard determination. I would save her, no matter the cost. I searched the book for a spell of protection, a spell of banishment, something to drive the darkness away. But the book seemed to resist me. The pages I needed were blank. The words for salvation were blurred and unreadable. Instead, the book kept falling open to a different page, a page I had tried to ignore before. It showed a drawing of a person standing in a circle, their hands raised to the sky as lightning crashed around them. The chapter was titled The Ascension of Power. It was a ritual to absorb the spiritual energy of a place, to make it your own. The book seemed to speak to me then. Not in words, but in feelings, in ideas that bloomed in my mind. It showed me a choice. I could try a weak, uncertain spell to save my friend. A spell that would likely fail and leave us both at the mercy of the shadows, or I could perform this other ritual, the Ascension. It would give me the power to command the shadows, to bend them to my will. With that power, I could simply order them to release Sarah. I could become the master of Blackwood Creek's darkness. I could save her and become powerful beyond my wildest dreams. The choice seemed so easy, so logical. I made my way to the graveyard. The fog was so thick I could barely see the tombstones which jutted from the ground like broken teeth. The air hummed with energy. The whispering was a roar here. This was the heart of the town's fear, the source of the power. The abandoned church loomed ahead, a skeletal silhouette against the grey sky. My choice was made. I would perform the Ascension ritual. I would take the power, save Sarah, and fix everything. I was so sure of myself, so sure that I was in control. I found a spot in the center of the graveyard, a place where the air felt coldest, where the whispers were the loudest. I drew the circle from the book, my hands moving with a confidence that wasn't my own. The symbols felt familiar, as if I had been drawing them my whole life. As I worked, the book lay open on a nearby tombstone, its pages rustling in a wind that I couldn't feel. It was watching me, guiding me, promising me everything. The thought of Sarah, alone and terrified in the church, spurred me on. This was for her. I was doing this for her. As I prepared to speak the final words of the ritual, a voice cut through the fog. "Alex, don't!" It was Sarah. She stood at the edge of the graveyard, her face pale and streaked with tears. She wasn't in the church. She had escaped. "Don't do it, Alex," she pleaded, taking a hesitant step toward me. "It's the book. It's tricking you. It's not the shadows that are the real danger. It's that book." The shadows swirled around her, hissing and reaching, but they didn't touch her. They were watching me, waiting for my decision. The book whispered in my mind again. "She's weak. She doesn't understand. They will take her again. Only you can protect her. Only with my power. Finish the ritual. Become their master." I looked at Sarah, her face filled with fear. Fear for me. Then I looked at the circle, at the promise of ultimate power. I could save her and be weak, always running, always afraid, or I could become strong, a master of the darkness, and ensure she was never scared again. The choice tore me in two, friendship or power, save my friend or save myself. "I'm doing this for you!" I screamed at Sarah, my voice sounding harsh and strange. I turned my back on her and raised my hands to the sky, just like in the drawing. The whispers of the book filled my head, drowning out Sarah's cries. I began the final chant. The words poured from my mouth, ancient and powerful. The ground beneath me began to tremble. The air crackled with energy. A vortex of purple and black light erupted from the chalk circle, swirling around me, lifting me off my feet. It was happening. I was ascending. Power surged through me. It was an agony and an ecstasy. I felt the fear of every soul ever buried in this graveyard. I felt the hunger of the shadows. I felt the cold, ancient evil that saturated the soil of Blackwood Creek. It flowed into me, filling me, changing me. My vision sharpened. I could see every wisp of fog, every terrified face on the gargoyles of the church. I could hear every secret whisper of the wind. I felt the shadows bow to me. They were mine to command. I was their master. I had won. I lowered myself to the ground, the vortex of light fading. I felt empty. The power was there, a cold, heavy weight inside me, but the thrill was gone. I turned to look for Sarah, a triumphant smile on my face. I would show her that I had made the right choice, but Sarah was gone. In her place, standing just outside my circle, was a tall, shadowy figure. It was more solid than the others, and it wasn't bowing. It was watching me with eyes that glowed with a faint, mocking light. The figure raised a long, thin arm and pointed, not at me, but at the book, still resting on the tombstone. I looked at the book, and for the first time I saw it clearly, the silver symbol on the cover. It wasn't a moon and a teardrop. It was a lock, a keyhole, and as I watched, the book dissolved into black dust. The dust swirled into the air and was absorbed by the tall, shadowy figure. It grew more solid, it grew more powerful, and then it spoke, its voice the sound of 1,000 graves opening at once. "Thank you for the key." I stared at the creature, my newfound power feeling like a useless toy. "Key?" I stammered. "What are you talking about?" My command over the shadows meant nothing. This being was not a shadow, it was their source. "This village is a prison," the entity hissed, its voice echoing in my mind, and that book was the lock. For centuries I have been trapped here, my power contained within its pages. I could whisper, I could tempt, but I could not act. I needed a vessel, someone greedy enough, someone foolish enough to gather all the prison's power into one place. It pointed a long, smoky finger at me. "You." My blood ran cold. The spells, the rituals, the choice, it was all a lie. The book hadn't been teaching me magic. It had been using me to gather the scattered fragments of its master's power. Every spell I cast, every shadow I fed, every bit of fear I harvested from the village was just another piece of the key. The ascension ritual wasn't for me to become a master, it was the final act of unlocking the cage. I hadn't taken the power for myself, I had collected it and delivered it, gift-wrapped, to my jailer. "And what about Sarah?" I asked, my voice trembling. The creature let out a dry, rattling laugh. "The friend?" A classic motivator, the oldest trick in the book, my book. It explained that Sarah was never in any real danger from the shadows. She was bait. Her fear was just a catalyst to push me, to make me desperate enough to seek the ultimate power. She was safe, at home right now, probably thinking I had become a monster. And she was right, I had, just not the kind of monster I thought I was. The creature took a step toward me, and the very ground seemed to decay at its touch. "You have my power now," it rasped. "You are the new lock. You are the new prison. Your body will be the vessel that contains me, and your will shall be my will. I tried to run, I tried to use the power I had claimed, but it was no longer mine. It held me fast, a cold, heavy anchor. The darkness I had welcomed into my soul now had a master. The true price of the magic wasn't a dead rosebush or a few nightmares. The price was me. I was the new book, bound in flesh instead of leather. And the mystical shadows of Blackwood Creek had a new master, one who was finally free to walk in the world.